Hello Econ students and welcome to video 3.3, Productivity and Profit. Let's review the learning target. I can explain the impact of various market structures on long-run profit, price, production, and efficiency. So we're going to look at how the four different market structures affect profit, price, production, and efficiency. We'll have to review a few terms in order to make sure that we're all on the same page. Very quickly, the invisible hand of the market. You probably remember that from Unit 2 when we studied supply and demand. That's when the voluntary, self-interested buyers and sellers do what is required, all the little components of bringing a product to market and the components of selling the product in order to make the product successful. On the next page, we'll define the following terms: productivity, profit, short run, and long run. As you're probably familiar with these terms, however, you're not necessarily familiar with them in the context of economics. So let's start with productivity. Productivity is the level of output, that's the finished product that your business would create, that results from inputs. Inputs are resources, and resources, remember, are sell, capital, entrepreneurship, land, and labor. So productivity is the level of output that results from what you put in. Profit. Profit is the difference between revenue, what you sold the product for example, if you sold a t-shirt for $20, and the cost, what was required to make it. For example, if it cost you $5 to make it, and you sold it for $20, your profit would be $15. We also have to keep in mind the difference between short run and long run. So in the long run, that's a period of time in which all inputs and outputs can be changed. Everything in your business can be changed in the long run. However, the short run is a period of time in which at least one input cannot be changed. We'll go through an example to clarify the difference between short run and long run. So, let's say this is Tammy. Tammy opens a bakery, and the reviews rave about her small shop. Her business triples overnight, and she's selling out her displays in an hour each day. So Tammy would like to expand her business, but she faces some challenges in the short run. In the short run, she is limited by the following resources. She only has so much capital, that means tools, so she only has so much oven space, shelf space, store space, etc. She only has so many natural resources. So much flour, sugar, butter, etc., and she's limited by her budget. She can only buy as much as she can based on her budget and what her refrigerator can hold. She's also limited to labor. She can't quite yet afford numerous employees, so she's limited in the short run to all these things. She can't change at least one of those things in the short run. However, in the long run, the possibilities that Tammy has are very endless. She could double the size of her bakery, she could hire additional workers, she could get suppliers who could supply her more frequently. So in the long run, she faces certain limits. In the long run, she does not face certain limits that she faces in the short run. Tammy works in a very competitive industry, that's the bakery industry. There's lots and lots of competitors offering a variety of different products. So now we're going to look at competition and how that influences productivity and profit. So keep Tammy's example in mind. Perfect competition is the least profitable and the most competitive because there's so many producers and each producer controls such a small percentage of the market. Monopolistic competition focuses on the non-price competition that we went through in class, those four factors, and profits are very small, usually in monopolistically competitive industries. Oligopolies, because you gain more market control and you have fewer competitors, they're still interdependent, but profits are higher or moderate, depending on the industry that you're in. And finally, monopolies. Monopolies are most profitable because there's one or no competitors usually, and market control is highly significant. So let's look at each of these in turn and looking at their productivity and profit. So perfect competition. Perfect competition is when the invisible hand is working at its full point. So when buyers or sellers are meeting at the equilibrium point where they're both happy. There's no price ceiling, no floor, nothing getting in the way of the buyers and sellers both being pleased with the price of the product. So in perfectly competitive industries, remember there's no or very few barriers to enter, which means that the competition is constantly fluctuating. No firm controls enough of the market to control the price. Therefore, whatever the price is the price that the perfectly competitive sellers will have to be takers on. Each firm must take the going market price, driving the profit very, very low. As we saw in our market for beans, the price of the product went lower and lower because there were so many competitors to compete with. In the long run, perfect competition faces very little profit as new firms enter to compete, driving the profit and the price down. So perfectly competitive industries are highly productive but very low in profit levels. Monopolistic competition. So monopolistic competition, there's fewer producers than there is in a perfectly competitive industry, and you can see a variety of examples here, many of which we've already discussed in class. There are few barriers to enter a monopolistically competitive market, but they still do definitely exist, and they fluctuate or depend upon what industry you're in. Mostly small profits are related to monopolistic competition. As we saw in the food truck video example, mostly small profits are taken by restaurants, hair salons, etc., even though their price might be relatively high. In the long run, they're less profitable than other market structures, but they're more profitable than perfectly competitive industries. Because firms enter and exit these markets quite frequently, hairdresser salons open and close constantly, the competition fluctuates, meaning that in the long run, over a long period of time in which you can change everything, you still make profit, but it's not as profitable as an oligopoly or a monopoly. Therefore, these industries have to be highly productive. Each firm has to produce at their maximum level to maintain their market share, especially if their market share is significantly small. Oligopolies, which are fewer competitors, here we have an example of Google, Apple, and Samsung as far as making phones, and then Microsoft, and then there's other smaller competitors that are players in an oligopolistic industry like the cell phone market. In oligopolies, there's high barriers to enter. That should be review. It's also less competition. They're interdependent as well, which means that they're going to be highly productive and highly innovative to maintain market share. We're constantly seeing these big three companies innovate on their phones, whether it's waterproofing their phones or no headphone jack in their phones. They're being very innovative to maintain their market share, which means that's going to drive them to be more profitable if their innovations are successful with consumers. Monopolies. Monopolies are the least competitive because there's the fewest suppliers or sellers. The current dominant supplier maintains this entire market, and so they have all the buyers, and because there are significant barriers to entry, we don't have significant suppliers competing with the dominant supplier. It's nearly impossible to enter the market for a variety of reasons. Whether it's a natural monopoly, a geographic monopoly, or a government monopoly, there are significant barriers, and that affects productivity and profit. The productivity can be based on the market. About that, the announcements came on. So, productivity is based on the market and based on the desires of the supplier or the individual monopolist. The demand curve is really steep, that's supposed to say steep, not step, in which if the price gets too high too quickly, the buyers will exit the market very quickly. In the long run, monopolies are highly profitable, assuming that the monopolist has found a point where buyers and sellers can both be happy, even though their productivity could be limited or smaller than the market dictates. So let's do a quick recap. I can explain the impact of various market structures on long-run profit, price, production, and efficiency. In order to do that, you need to take into account that the 4 different market structures have 4 different components when it comes to how profitable they can be, which affects their price, their production, and their level of efficiency. So, perfect competition is least profitable, but it's most efficient as far as the buyers are concerned. Further to the right you go, you find that the industries are more profitable but less efficient in the fact that they might restrict supply because they can do that, knowing that they're the sole supplier of a product. Next up is video 3.4, Market Failures.